Hey, it's Matt Bowles. I want to invite you to join me at Latino Travel Fest, June 20th to 22nd, 2025 in Chicago. This is the event to gather, grow, and galvanize the Latino community to experience the world and diversify the face of travel. A bunch of really dope people show up at this event. There's going to be a number of Maverick Show guests there. Allies are also welcome. I went last year. I'm definitely going again this year. And if you would like to meet me there, you can get a 15% discount on your ticket. Just go to themaverickshow.com/Latino and then use the code Maverick15 at checkout for a 15% discount. And then be sure to send me a direct message on Instagram at Maverick Show Pod. Let me know that you're coming so that we can plan to link up at the event. Once again, get your ticket at themaverickshow.com/Latino and use the code Maverick15 to get your 15% discount at checkout. And I will see you in Chicago. And now, here's a clip of what's coming up on today's episode.
I'm a huge foodie, but I grew up primarily eating my mom's food, Dominican food, which I absolutely love, except it wasn't until I went to college that I was exposed to so many cuisines. And I remember having Thai food for the first time, and it was just this explosion of flavors in my mouth that I have never experienced before. And also the spice level that almost took me out because contrary to popular belief, not all Latin American countries are Mexico, and we just do not do spicy food. And so I was building up my spice tolerance. I was having these different cuisines. It became this thing where I was seeking those cultural experiences through food in my travel, because how beautiful it is to have your friends who are from different parts of the world introduce their food to you and what it means to them. And so it's very much a human connection through food. And I just love the significance of food in every culture.
This is the Maverick Show, where you'll meet today's most interesting location-independent entrepreneurs and world travelers, and learn the strategies and tactics they use to succeed. And now, here's your host, Matt Bowles.
Hey everybody, it's Matt Bowles. Welcome to the Maverick Show. This is part 2 of my interview with Elsie Paulino. If you have not yet listened to part 1, I highly recommend you go back and do that first. It provides some very important context for this episode. If you have already listened to part 1, you know we're about halfway through our bottle of rosé from Provence. So come along as we finish the bottle and finish up this interview. Please enjoy the conclusion of my interview with Elsie Paulino. So I haven't yet been to the city of Oaxaca, but I have been to Puerto Escondido, which is in Oaxaca State. And I was there 2022. Yeah, super interesting place. And I'm curious if you can describe your take on the vibe of Puerto Escondido in contrast to the Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cancun type of vibe, because certainly there are plenty of foreigners that are there, but the vibe was very different.
It's very laid back. It is very much a beach town, but there's nothing showy about it. There aren't these super luxurious hotels. There aren't these massive resorts. You feel like you're part of the community there when you're visiting. And I think that's what gives you that different feeling to the Playa del Carmens and the Tulums and the Cancuns that are very much at this point built to serve tourism and more lounging vacations rather than exploration, which you get a lot of in Puerto Escondido.
Well, I want to ask you about another place in Mexico that I have not yet been, which is Guanajuato. Can you share what you love about it there?
Oh, Guanajuato is so colorful. I think it's considered one of the most colorful cities in Mexico, if not the world. So I actually went for the day because I was staying in San Miguel de Allende, and I rent cars. I've driven in Thailand, I've driven in Mexico, and I know it's probably not the most comfortable thing, but I like being on my own time. And so from San Miguel, I drove to Guanajuato for the day. And it's another, honestly, Mexican city that feels like a fairy tale. So it's super colorful. The street food is incredible. And you can tell that it's a city that's attracting more and more tourists because there are so many walking tours, but it never felt super overwhelming. And they were happy to see us, if that makes sense. So it was a very warm city, a very stunning and colorful city. And I definitely want to go back and spend more time there.
Well, one of the things that I love about your content overall is that it is very much food centric, and you very much do focus on the best culinary experiences in these places. A lot of it is street food. A lot of it is very inexpensive and absurdly amazing food, which is exactly what I love, which is why I'm such a fan of your content, and also best coffee shops and stuff like that. And as I'm going through your stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm like bookmarking like all of this stuff because you are speaking my language for what I need to know when I go to these places. But you also do the same thing for your home city of New York, which is incredible. And I'm here now and I'm like going through, I was like, oh, I got to go there. I got to go there. I got to go there. I want you to give love to New York and put people on to some of the highlights. And you break it out as well by borough, and you do Brooklyn stuff and you do Queens stuff. So maybe let's just start with Queens, which is where you are based now. Because I feel like a lot of people skip Queens. And I feel like Queens is so unbelievably culturally rich, and the food is just next level. And so for people that would like to come and experience Queens next time that they're in New York, what would you put people on to? What are some of the highlights?
Ooh, so for breakfast, I think Little Flower has, I'm going to say it, the best breakfast burrito in all of New York City, all 5 boroughs. No, I haven't had all the burritos out there, but I am still standing 10 toes down on that. It also has unbelievable pastries. So it's an Afghani bakery in Astoria, Queens, and it's become super popular, especially by locals, but more tourists are finding it. And so incredible pastries, incredible food, and delicious tea and coffee. So definitely Little Flower. So it's funny because I love Sammy's Kebab House, which is right next to it. The owner of Sammy's Kebab House is the father of the owner of Little Flower. So they have a nice little family thing going on. Incredible Afghan food. And then, I mean, it depends. Like for ramen, there's Hino Ramen. You need Biryalandia, which is now everywhere, but the originators are in Queens. So tacos. I mean, there's everything. There's everything. Nona's for pizza is absolutely incredible. District Saigon for Vietnamese. And then they have so many coffee shops. I love a good coffee shop. I do.
Well, we're certainly going to link up your content in the show notes for this episode. I want people to definitely go and check out your Instagram reels because you go to these places, you video them, you review them, you talk about them, and it makes me want to go to them. So we're going to link that up in the show notes, of course. But let's talk about Brooklyn. For people that would like to spend time in Brooklyn, what for you are some of the highlights in that borough?
So Brooklyn, you're probably going to go to Dumbo. And so because you're going to go to Dumbo, you have to check out the Time Out Market. So the Time Out Market, one, it has all foods, but it also has a lot of the viral places that deserve its virality in the Time Out Market. Like they have their stalls outside of their restaurants, outside of the boroughs. So you have everything you can possibly want at the Time Out Market. Yes, there's an upcharge. But if you go to the roof, there's an incredible view of the city. So it makes the upcharge worth it. I would recommend going either on a weekday or early because it gets super packed, but it's just a beautiful part of Brooklyn. But Brooklyn itself has a huge pizza scene, any pizza, to be honest. So definitely just seek out pizza. And also, I'm obsessed, coffee shops. There's so many coffee shops in Brooklyn. Cute coffee shops. Ooh, Winsun. Taiwanese. I'm pretty sure Taiwanese bakery. Super viral, but very, very, very worth it. They have this black sesame latte that's to die for.
Amazing. Well, as you know, you are now officially my consultant for these things. I have been going through your content. I'm bookmarking things, and I now have a bucket list of places in Brooklyn and Queens to try. So we're going to link all of that up in the show notes so folks can check it out. How did you, though, Elsie, get started in deciding that you wanted to create travel content, both about New York, but also about these other places around the world?
So I've been traveling for most of my life, and it's something that I'm always going to do. And so I wanted to be part of the mission to diversify the face of travel, because so many people in our communities, the Black and Brown community or underrepresented communities, they see travel as like this privilege. And it very much is a privilege, but it's an accessible privilege. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. It's very much something that you can access that may feel far-fetched, but it's not at all. You don't have to stay at a 5-star hotel and still have the best time of your life. And so I wanted to show, one, I like showcasing Black and Brown businesses. I feel like I do that a lot in New York City with my content, and I like to do it abroad as well. And I also want to show people that it's possible to travel the world with your 9-to-5. I have a 9-to-5. I do this part-time. To be fair, I do work remotely full-time, so that gives me a lot of flexibility that others may not have. But yeah, travelers look like me, and you don't see it as much.
Well, I want to ask for sure about the Nomadness-Intrepid program that you did in Colombia last month. Maverick Show listeners know Evita Robinson, who has been on the podcast. They know Gabby Beckford, who has been on the podcast. But for people that have never heard about this program that Nomadness and Intrepid do together, can you share a little bit about the program and then how you got onto it and what your experience was like?
It was incredible. So shout out to Evita and Nomadness Tribe and Intrepid Travel. So the program started because they wanted to give opportunity to BIPOC travel content creators. So it's a mentorship trip, and you have these well-established content creators who act as mentors. It started with Intrepid, and now they've partnered with Nomadness Tribe for the last 3 years. This year was the 3rd year, and I was part of that class. So 4 people are awarded this trip that's completely sponsored. And the beautiful thing about the trip is that, yes, you get to learn a lot about the content creation space and what could make you successful, but you also get to form these incredible connections, and you're part of this community that you couldn't even fathom even existed. And one of Evita's superpowers is her bringing together incredible people. And I think that is a superpower because she's very intentional about who she kind of brings into the community. I mean, it is open, right? But these trips are very much curated because you want the mentees who come on to have a really special experience and give them space to grow. And that can kind of be killed by just one person, you know? So she's very, very special. And then obviously, shout out to Intrepid Travel to sponsor this, because a lot of people say that they are for underrepresented communities, but then when it comes down to it, they don't really act on it, right? It's just words. And Intrepid Travel is not one of those companies. They stand on what they say, and this is a huge example of that.
So where in Colombia did you go? What did you take from the trip? What did you learn there? What was the experience actually like for you?
Oh, it was incredible. One of the mentees said it best. It was the Travel Olympics. They had us ripping and running through Colombia. We flew into Bogota, immediately went to Pereira, Salento, which is the town that Encanto was inspired by. And we went to Cocora Valley, which is probably one of the most beautiful terrains I'll ever see in my life. It was just otherworldly. And then we went to Medellin for a couple days, which was so beautiful. I need to go back. It's such a stunning and special city. I mean, you are in a city, but you're surrounded by mountains. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And then we went to Tirona, which, if you don't know what Tirona is, it has the largest mountain range that's right next to the ocean. Beautiful.
It's amazing. Colombia is super special. I have been continuing to go back there. I think the first time I went was probably 10 years ago. And I've now gone back again and again. And I've spent probably at least 4 months there. And I usually just post up in a different city. So I spent a couple of months in Medellin, spent a month in Bogota, I spent a month in Cali. That was the last time that I was there, which is truly spectacular. And so Colombia just continues to absolutely delight, and I'm excited to plan my next trip to go back and spend more time there because it is a magical country in every way. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about the evolution of your platform, your personal brand, and sort of the niche and the style and the focus of your travel content and how that evolved and what people can expect from your content today.
I started creating content a little over a year ago, so I still feel very much new to this, and I've learned so much. But what I've wanted to focus on is my craft and developing my craft. And one of the things that you will find on my page is quality content. I am very intentional about what I'm putting out, what I'm putting together, and I want to add value. ChatGPT can tell you where to go and what to do, but I can show you what it's truly like to have those experiences. And if I just open your eyes to a place you've never even considered, because those for me have been the most life-changing trips. Vienna, Sri Lanka, places that were completely off my radar, that it was introduced to me through a conversation, through, in this case, a college experience. And so I want to give those potential experiences to my viewers. And so you're going to find quality content, and they're also unfiltered. I'm not heavy edited and filtered. I want you to see what it's like, truly what it is like. And what I want to lean more into, especially after the Intrepid and Nomadness Tribe trip, is storytelling. Because like I said, ChatGPT can tell you where to go and what to do, but to see the human behind it and what you learn and how you grow through these trips, I think is going to be what people want to see and want to experience from their creators. And it also gives you a lens into the person themselves, right? So they're going to see a lot more storytelling. I still want to tell you where to go, what to eat, and what to do, because I do love that stuff, truly. But I also want you to learn more about me in the process and how much I've grown over the years and how much of a role travel has had in that.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Now, when you look back at your travels over all of these years, how do you reflect on the impact that travel has had on you as a person?
It's who I am. And I can attribute so many of my qualities to travel, because what travel does is, first and foremost, open your mind and your heart. Because you're experiencing these different places and the people in these places and the cultures of these places. And you realize that while the world is vast, there are humans behind those places in your screen, and experiencing and connecting with them and creating friendships out of moments has been so special in making me the open-minded, independent, confident person that I am. And I think that if I would have stayed on Long Island, I wouldn't have a lot of the viewpoints that I have now. It really has opened up everything for me.
When you think about the lens through which you've seen the world and your Afro-Latina identity and having that be part of the lens through which you see the world, how would you reflect on that part of what it means to you today to be Afro-Latina and how your travels may have impacted that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm drawn, even in exploring New York City, I'm drawn to underrepresented stories because they're beautiful and they're powerful and there's so much that's been overcome. And I want to highlight them in my experiences. And I'm drawn to that. And I think you can see that in a lot of my content. And so it's driven me personally, but now it's being shown through my platform is giving voice to perhaps the voiceless.
Well, you are one of the featured speakers at the upcoming Latino Travel Fest. Big shout out to our mutual friend, Vanessa Fonder, who Maverick Show listeners, of course, know because she's been on the show. And I talk about her as frequently as possible because she's amazing. She just hung out with us at WITS. But I am super excited because I'm going to be at the Latino Travel Fest as well. I was so excited to see that you are going to be a speaker there. What are you going to be talking about at the Latino Travel Fest?
This is going to be so random because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I am really passionate about personal finance. And financial literacy is something that I learned late in life because you think you suddenly have a steady income, but financial literacy does not come with the paycheck. And so I kind of learned that the hard way in the beginning. And so I'm on the road to building $1 million investment portfolio. And that started in 2017. And so it's just something that I'm really passionate about. And I would love to pass on whatever information I've benefited from. So that's what my 40 minutes session will be about.
Can you share a little bit more about your personal finance journey and how you learned about some of these things and why you're so passionate about helping particularly underrepresented communities build generational wealth?
Yes. Financial literacy isn't taught in school. It's usually taught at home. And a lot of people in my community don't come from families that are financially literate, right? Very much the immigrant family came here and are automatically in survival mode. They just need to get food on the table. And the American economic system is just foreign to them. To this day, probably. They just were never taught, right? It's not part of the inauguration of coming to this country. And so that was the reality for me. And when I came out of college, I wasn't even contributing to my 401k because I didn't really understand what that was. I'm going to put my money in some arbitrary place? No. But I have one of my friends who's also on the same journey, and she started hers much sooner than mine. And she would talk to me about it, but I didn't really hear her. It was sort of like, yeah. And finally, one of my coworkers, shout out Joe, we were in an early career setting, and he said that he's passionate about financial literacy and personal finance. And he invited the group to reach out to him and talk to him. I was the only one who did that. Because I was like, oh, I don't know what any of this means. And he's offering up free advice. And so we ended up spending 3 hours and he just like taught me everything. And so that was in 2017. And that really sparked something in me because for the first time, I'm like, oh, I can do this. There is a method and a strategy. And oh, by the way, it's not complicated like people make it seem. I'm not day trading. And then like I said, my friend was on that journey. And then I'm like, oh crap, Naima, I hear what you were telling me a couple of years back. I finally hear it and I want to go on that journey. And so having her to talk about it, because it's kind of a lonely journey, that was a game changer.
So for people that might be listening to this right now, that might be intrigued by this, maybe this is their first time hearing about it, or maybe they're starting but feeling that they're on a lonely journey. What tips might you have or basic principles that you can share for personal finance and wealth building?
It's a mindset shift. So it's not complicated, but it is hard and it takes a level of discipline. So it really starts with the mind because especially in 2020, 2021, the financial expert boom of content creators kind of like came about and they are very talented and they're giving you a lot of information. But unless you take action, it means nothing. And like I said, my friend was talking to me for years and I just didn't hear it until there was a mindset shift. So definitely working on that and really believing that it is possible. That's where it starts. And then after that, there's habits that you develop. For example, pay yourself first. Don't save and invest after you've gone through all your expenses and then have fun money and funded, maybe new pairs of shoes. No, pay yourself first. And then whatever's left over is what you can have fun with. And it doesn't look the same for everyone. And then the other piece of advice, you're going to make mistakes. You have to just act. You have to start with $20, $100, $50. It doesn't matter, but you have to start and you're going to make mistakes and that's okay.
Do you have any specific tips for where to start and then what a long-term wealth building plan might look like, even though it may vary for some people, but conceptually or principally what that might look like?
So you can't save your way to retirement. You have to invest your money. And so if you work in corporate America and your employer has the option to invest in a 401k, that's certainly where I would start. And especially if they offer a match, because that is, guys, free money, literally free money. You put in $1, they put in $1, and there is no catch. So I think overall, you just have to invest, whether it's a 401k or whether maybe you don't want to start or it's too intimidating. There are robo advisors like Betterment, where you just open it just like a savings account. You put $50 every week, every month, and they kind of do it for you for a fee. I started like that. That's how I started investing. And then I got comfortable and I was like, oh, I can do this myself. But in the meantime, my money was growing in that fund and it's fully invested in the stock market. So big fan of robo-advisors like Betterment, and I think Wealthfront is another one, just to develop the habit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And then once you start building up a certain level of wealth, then you can start diversifying in different areas and so forth. And as you and I were just discussing recently, and as most of the Maverick Show listeners know, I run a company called Maverick Investor Group, which is a real estate brokerage that helps people to buy cash flowing rental properties that are already renovated, tenanted, being managed and performing. And one of the pieces of education that I do is that when you buy the physical house, the hard asset, you own the deeded real estate as a rental property, all of a sudden that activates 5 simultaneous profit centers that start working for you, instead of what most people think about of investing is you buy something and you hope and pray it goes up in value and it has one profit center, right? But when you buy a rental property, all of a sudden you've got a stream of income because you're buying where your rent covers all of your expenses and then gives you positive cash flow. You've got market appreciation when the home price goes up, but you've also got your tenant's rent covering your mortgage principal pay down. So you're building equity through mortgage principal pay down, even if the property doesn't go up in value, so it's a separate profit center. Then you've got all the tax benefits because the government wants to incentivize you to provide housing for your fellow citizens. So a rental property, not a primary residence, a rental property, you can depreciate the value of your property, even if it's going up in value, take it as a loss against your income that would otherwise be taxable. So you can keep that in your pocket instead of paying it to the government. And then you can also profit from inflation, which is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about real estate. But what is actually one of the most important things to understand is that if you buy a rental property and you get a mortgage, you have now just moved yourself to the other side of the inflation equation. Normally, inflation is really insidious and you're holding money in your bank account. Inflation is just destroying your buying power. It's just eating away your wealth. But if instead you move that money, let's say you have $150,000 in the bank and you move that and you buy a $150,000 rental property, which you can do in Indianapolis, Kansas City, Missouri, places like that, Cleveland. Now, all of a sudden, you're on the other side of the inflation equation because home prices rise with inflation, rents rise with inflation. And if you borrowed that 30-year fixed rate mortgage in today's real dollars, you're paying it back in future diminished nominal dollars that are worth less than the ones that you borrowed. So instead of destroying your wealth, inflation is destroying your debt So all of these things start to come into play. So these are some of the more sort of sophisticated strategies, but you don't have to have that much money to start. So if it's a $150,000 property, fully renovated, single family home, that's the type of range that we deal with in these markets. If you get an 80% mortgage, it's only $30,000 as your down payment. And once you have that, now you can start owning rental properties and activating 5 profit centers instead of 1 profit center. And you can start doing all of these different things. And so I think it's important just to get started, just to get your initial wealth up to a point, and then you can start really looking into some of these diversification strategies and how you can kind of turbocharge that. One of the other things that I want to ask you about, though, just bringing this back to the travel discussion that I have seen you do amazing content on, is travel hacks and budget techniques for how people can travel the world for way less than they expect. I have seen you talking about getting tickets to Puerto Rico round trip for $79. The people are like, wait, what? That's like a cab fare downtown and back in New York, and you can go all the way to Puerto Rico and back for that. What? On a plane? That's crazy. And then, as you know, obviously, once you get to Europe or Asia, all of a sudden, you can just go round trip for like $50 to country. I mean, it's less than cab fare in New York City to fly to another country because they have all these discounted airlines, right? But I'm curious if you can share a couple maybe of your travel hacks, your budget tips and techniques for people that might think travel is something that's very expensive, when in fact you found ways where it definitely does not have to be expensive.
Yeah, so you teed me up there. People don't understand the power of Google Flights. I mean, you can track where you want to go, but let's say you have dates. Fine. If you have those dates, you can track 6 anytime in advance, but maybe you have flexibility. Google Flights will show you what are the cheapest round trip flights all over the world.
So let's talk about how this works. So you go to flights.google.com.
Yes.
Type that into the website, and then you put your departing airport.
You put in your departing airport, and then the 2 is left anywhere.
Leave it blank. Don't put where you want to go.
You want a week in August. That's all you say. You want 7 days in August. Click search, and it'll give you this map view with dollar amounts, with round trip dollar amounts. And you see what is the cheapest place or destination that you can go in August for 7 days. And boom. But also, if you have a specific place and a specific time, track it. And there's also historical data that's being shown to you in Google Flights. So you know if you're buying a cheaper, or maybe it's in mid-range, or it's expensive because you've waited last minute. So it all takes patience, research, and time. Just spend the time to do the research. It'll save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
I love that. And I think that's really, really significant. If you just want to go to an amazing destination and you just look from your departing airport, what destinations internationally are the cheapest for me to fly to? And you might find some that you haven't really thought about or haven't really researched extensively. And then it's a great opportunity to research what are the most epic and amazing things to do in this destination. And then those are some of the funnest travel experiences when you're learning new stuff. Do you have any other travel hacks or budget tips in addition to buying the deal, not the destination, and looking for the cheapest flights once you get there? Any other things people can do to try to keep the travel expenses low?
One thing that I do a lot is when I get to my destination, I never convert my money. Skip all of those conversion places. A lot of them are running scams, so you have to be careful. But just go to the ATM. Just go to a bank ATM and decline their conversion, because your home bank is always going to give you the best rates and you have cash with you. So stop converting your money. It's just not necessary. Use the bank ATMs and you'll be fine.
And always select the local currency. If you are paying with your credit card and it says, would you like to pay in US dollars or the local currency? Always select the local currency, because if you select US dollars, they are charging you a currency conversion fee in addition to what you're going to be charged. So that is a really good tip. And for people who are from the US, one of the things that I use is the Charles Schwab ATM card. And one of the amazing things about this is that it pays for, covers, waives for you all of the ATM fees, both that your home bank, Charles Schwab, would charge, and whatever the ATM fee is on the international ATM that you are putting your card into, it covers that for you so you don't pay it.
I didn't know that. I just learned something new.
Crazy.
Insane.
So yes, and make sure for your travel credit card that you get a travel credit card that has no foreign transaction fees. So most cards are going to tell you whether or not they do. You obviously want one that doesn't have foreign transaction fees. And then, I mean, points and miles are the other thing that a lot of people have heard about. One of the things, though, that some people don't know about is that you can get points and miles for doing things that have nothing to do with travel. Like you can just route 100% of your regular personal expenses through your travel card, and you can get points and miles for those. And even when you're going and doing online shopping, some of the airlines will have an online shopping mall. And when you click through them, I'm going to buy my Nike shoes through this thing, or I'm going to buy my online, whatever, my Bose headphones through this thing. And you click through the United portal or the Delta portal to buy those purchases are getting you points or miles. And then also the credit card that you paid on is getting you additional points and miles. And you can really structure your entire life and all of your expenses to be getting and double dipping on points and miles. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're not flying around the world for $75 round trip. You're flying around the world for free.
Yes. Point hacking is huge. I can't say I'm an expert, but I definitely take advantage where I can.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a really good place for people that maybe don't travel a lot, but have the impression that like, oh, frequent flyer miles are just for people that are frequent flyers. No, you can get a credit card and you can also shop through these airline portals. You know, Delta even has a portal for, and this is a pretty wild thing for digital nomads. Delta even has a portal where they have a relationship with Airbnb. So someone like me who has no permanent base, and I might just rent Airbnbs for 2 months at a time in different cities around the world. And so let's say 12 months of the rent that I pay is to Airbnb. Well, if I'm using the Delta portal to get to the Airbnb site, every dollar I spend with Airbnb, which is basically 100% of my rent, is getting me Delta miles.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of these things, if you do a little bit of research and you're just like, okay, I'm going to pay for this anyways. I'm paying for my groceries anyways. I'm paying for my utilities anyways. I'm paying for my whatever, my rent and stuff anyways. How can I route these payments through these routes that are going to give me the most points and miles, and then without doing any traveling at all, because you might just be paying your regular expenses and groceries and gas and whatever, all of a sudden you're just going to start getting free flights.
Yeah. And not that I want to promote opening up a bunch of credit cards, but one of your biggest expenses is housing and rent. And most credit cards don't allow you to pay for that. But the Built card, which I just got last year, allows you to pay your rent and gain points on the most expensive expense in your life. So shout out to Built.
Yeah, exactly. So if you put a little time and effort and research into figuring this out, it is possible to travel for incredibly inexpensively and oftentimes get the flights and that kind of stuff completely for free. Elsie, I want to also ask you about your choice for centering food in your travels. And a lot of times when you travel around the world, food will be one of your primary priorities when you travel. And I want to ask you about that as a means of connecting with culture and connecting with place through food.
I'm a huge foodie, but I grew up primarily eating my mom's food, Dominican food, which I absolutely love, except it wasn't until I went to college that I was exposed to so many cuisines. And I remember having Thai food for the first time, and it was just this explosion of flavors in my mouth that I have never experienced before. And also the spice level that almost took me out, because contrary to popular belief, not all Latin American countries are Mexico, and we just do not do spicy food. And so I was building up my spice tolerance. I was having these different cuisines. It became this thing where I was seeking those cultural experiences through food in my travel, because when I started traveling, I didn't prioritize food, which now is freaking insane. But yeah, it was through exposure that my love of food developed, and also how beautiful it is to have your friends who are from different parts of the world introduce their food to you and what it means to them. And so it's very much a human connection through food. And it's something that I've experienced in all of my travel at one point or another. And so I'm a huge foodie, but I just love the significance of food in every culture.
Well, I appreciate what you said about spicy food as well and building up your tolerance, because I'm Irish American. So listen, meat and potatoes. And when we're talking about foreign food growing up, it's Italian food, maybe some Chinese takeout, and then maybe some Mexican food, which is very interesting to your point, because I started to realize Mexican food is spicy. And I think that before I traveled through Central and South America, I projected Mexico south. I projected it downward. And I assumed that since Mexican food is spicy, when I go to Central America, when I go to South America, the food will also be spicy. Not so. Mexico, I have found, is the only country in all of the Americas that actually has spicy food. And I mean that, obviously there's some spicy dishes maybe in a couple places, or you can get spice on the side or whatever. But as a core part of their cuisine, Mexico is really the only country in all the Americas that has spicy food.
And Matt, you're not alone. The amount of times that as a Dominican woman, I've said like, oh, it's too spicy for me. And they're like, aren't you Latina? I'm like, okay, it's only Mexico.
I'm not Mexican.
I'm not Mexican.
Yeah.
I've had to explain that dozens of times to this day. So you are not alone.
Yeah. And then it started me thinking, it's like, well, which countries actually have spicy food as like a core staple of their cuisine? Meaning when you order the food, it will come spicy unless you order it otherwise. And Mexico is the only one in the Americas. And then when you start to go, there's really not any in Europe. And then you start to get into Asia. And a lot of Asia also is not spicy food. Arab food, West Asia, that's not spicy at all. So you're really talking about some very specific places. You're talking about the subcontinent, which you and I both now love. Indian food,
so
Sri
spicy.
Lankan food, Bangladeshi food, Pakistani food, love it all. And then China, mostly not spicy. There's a couple provinces that do a little bit of spice, mostly not. Korea is very interesting because, have you been to Korea?
Yes.
Yeah, Korea, I found you go to restaurants, and I dearly love Korean food. Oh my gosh, it was amazing, wasn't it? But I found like some restaurants you'll go and it'll be like half the menu will be the spicy dishes and half the menu will be 100% not spicy.
Yes.
You can do like either one.
Yeah.
And so I tell people like, listen, if you like spice, you're in good shape in Korea. And also, if you don't like spice, you're in good shape in Korea. Like,
very.
Not a problem. But Korea was just, oh my gosh. And Korea would do those things where they have these restaurants that serve one dish only.
Yes.
They're like, we serve beef bulgogi, and that is the only dish we serve. We have no menu. You come in, you sit down, and we will bring you your beef bulgogi. There are no choices. There are no other options. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest beef bulgogi I've ever had. And I would go there for 30 straight days for lunch.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then I found my late night place for like spicy octopus bibimbap or something. And I would just go there every night and it would just be magical. Korea was really special. Did you find that also?
The first time I went to Korea, no, I didn't like it. I went to Seoul and I found it to be hard to navigate and I hated it. Why am I going to a corner store to get my Metro card? And then I was just so annoyed. And then everything is Korean. I downloaded an app that I needed to navigate and I couldn't translate it. So I had to hand it to a Korean. He couldn't figure it out. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I I don't know what I did wrong. And it was only 24 hours because it was like a long labor, probably less.
Okay.
I did not have a good first impression of Korea. Even like you go there for these facial treatments, everything is through WhatsApp. Nobody responds. By the time you get a response and then you respond, the appointment's gone. Matt, don't get me started.
Did you go back or was that your only experience?
I went back, but again, I've only been there it was better, but only for layovers.
Layers. Okay.
So I need to go back. I do, because it is beautiful. I know.
So this is to be honest, this is one of the reasons that I prioritize slow travel. I lived in Seoul for 5 weeks. To me, Seoul is amazing. It is incredible, right? But in part, this is why for any place, because there's so many places in the world that I feel like your first day there, no matter where it is your acclimation day. And it can often be very frustrating and very challenging.
Yes.
And we talked about some of the places that are a little overstimulating on the first day, right? And you're just like, what is this place? But then if you stay there for a while, like Cairo is another one, right? Have you been to Egypt?
No.
Okay, so Cairo is like super overwhelming for people. Like the first time you get there, you're like, what is happening? The motorcycles are driving on the sidewalk. The stoplights don't work. There's never a stop in traffic. You have to walk in front of 4 lanes of cars to get across the street. Like, what is happening? If that's the first city you've been like that, you're just like, this is crazy and it's overwhelming. But then when you live there for a while, you're like, oh, wait, there's a lot of organization to this chaos. And I just need to spend my time sitting here for a minute, observing it, watching how the locals do it, and then start moving in the flow with the city. And then you're moving with the city, not trying to move against it. And all of a sudden it starts to make a lot of sense, right? And I feel like there's a lot of places in Asia that are like that, right? Where first you get to like, whoa, I'm sure Hanoi probably for the first time you get to Hanoi, it's probably like
definitely
intense. Like I was in Phnom Penh, Cambodia for a month, and that place, a lot of people are like, whoa, this place is wild. But then you stay there for a month, you're like, okay, got it. Like I figured it out. Like I know how to do this now, right? And so it takes a little bit of that acclimation. But for me, 5 weeks in Seoul, Korea was just really a special time.
I know I need to go back. and I'm going to love it. I'm determined.
I feel like you will. I want to actually ask you though, just in terms of connecting with places and depth of connection, having the Spanish language fluency that you have, I want to ask you about traveling to Spanish speaking countries versus countries that you don't speak the language in, and how that provides a deeper level of connection than someone like me might have who doesn't have fluent Spanish. And there's so many countries that speak Spanish as a first language. How have those experiences been for you just in terms of the depth of connection?
So it definitely makes it easy. I mean, accessibility is completely opened up because you can't get lost. You just turn around and ask anyone for direction or advice. And then also they hear you speak Spanish, but you're obviously not from there. And so they open up almost immediately. They're like, oh my gosh, you speak Spanish. And so there's like this instant warmth that happens when I'm in Latin American countries that is harder to get. Not that I haven't gotten it, but it takes more time to get in other countries. That being said, regardless of the language that you speak, your time abroad will be so much more special if you at least learn how to say the basics. Even if you learn only their salutations and thank you and just certain words, it just instantly opens up this, you're kind of like just welcomed in. And it just shows respect for other languages and other countries. I think Parisians hate Americans because we just barge into any place and just start speaking English, and they're right to hate us for it.
I want to ask for any travel tips that you might have for Black or Latino travelers that might be at the earlier stage of their travel journey.
You have to do it. You learn so much about yourself, and you learn how much you can figure things out on the go. There's power in doing and experiencing and making those mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And it is okay because you realize you will survive. And so I always say, just go and start with any place that has called to you in any way, be it a show, a movie. Maybe you have a friend that's from that place, and just grab onto that one location that keeps calling your name and go. Just do it. Don't wait for anyone. If you can do it in company, great. But if you can't, just do it. And it's accessible. You can do it. It's for you. It is for everyone. And so that's definitely what I would say.
All right, Elsie, let me ask you one more question and then we'll wrap this up and move into the lightning round. When you think back about all the travel that you've done up to this point, why are you still so passionate about continuing to travel? What does travel mean to you today?
I am my happiest version abroad. Everything cracks me up, Matt. I am just so light. I'm so present, which is something that you don't experience in your day-to-day because you're sort of on autopilot. I find that I'm very intentional, very present, very light abroad. And it's a feeling that I'll always continue to seek. It's exciting. I have the most energy while I'm abroad. I'm a homebody. When I'm home, listen, I don't have to leave my house ever. But when I'm abroad, I just have all this energy and I want to explore and I want to learn and I want to experience. And I can't imagine that passion ever going away.
Well, I think that is an amazing place to end the main portion of this interview. And at this point, Elsie, are you ready to move in to the lightning round?
I think so.
Let's do it.
The lightning round.
Since you're a food content creator, what is the number one best meal you have ever had anywhere in the world?
Matt, that is so freaking hard, but I do have an answer. Boca Chica, Dominican Republic. When you go to Boca Chica, there's a lot of stalls that are selling fresh fish. And I mean fresh, like that thing was just caught. It's by the beach. So they'll set up a table on the beach. And I remember this meal, it was at sunset. The fish was fried, but just so fresh. And then it had a side of tostone, which is fried plantains and avocado. And it seems like such a simple meal, but I think it was the experience, almost like the salt water that was in the air, the company, the perfect weather, your toes in the sand while the water is coming up. I mean, it was stunning. And it was the best meal of my life.
That is amazing. I have also to tell you one thing, sort of a confession. I have never been to the Dominican Republic.
How dare you?
I know it's ridiculous because I have
twice.
I know.
That's twice.
I know. I have so many amazing Dominican friends. We have many Dominican friends in common. It is super high on my list. So actually, let me ask you this for the next lightning round question. How would you recommend that someone experience the Dominican Republic? What are your top tips for traveling there?
There's misconception that a lot of the country is dangerous, but it's not. We're very welcoming as people. We're just very smiley and very warm, and we want to embrace others. And that is just multiplied by 100 in the country, right? And so, yeah, sure, there are places you should avoid, but go to Santo Domingo, which is the capital. Go to Santiago, which is the second capital. And sure, go to Punta Cana, Puerto Plata, those places that are beautiful. If you want to experience that sort of beauty, but less commercial, go to La Terrenas, which is absolutely stunning.
What if you're a digital nomad and you want to post up there for 1 to 3 months? What would be an amazing base to maybe work remotely and really have a residential life in an incredible place?
I would say Santo Domingo. It's organized chaos. But it gives you access to the country and it's a city, right? So it gives you a lot of access to different foods and different neighborhoods. So I would say Santo Domingo.
All right. Elsie, what is one book maybe that has significantly influenced you that you would most recommend people should read?
This isn't going to surprise anyone that knows me, but I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. And I recommend that book because while he does cover the fundamentals of finance and personal finance, he also does it in a way that's no BS, very clear and easy to follow. But he also challenges the money mindset, but the psychology behind money. Something that I struggle with is sometimes spending money. I mean, I can spend it, but it's almost like a little bit of scarcity. Right? It's hard to overcome because of how you grew up or whatever your situation is. And he challenges that, which I really appreciate it. So I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
All right. Who is one person currently alive today that you've never met that you'd most love to have dinner with, just you and that person for an evening of dinner and conversation?
Ooh, this one's hard, but I would say Issa Rae. She's freaking hilarious. She's seemingly so down to earth, but also she's such an incredible creative and storyteller. And I feel like I would learn so much from that one sit down conversation with her and also just have a blast.
All right, Elsie, knowing everything that you know now, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to 18-year-old Elsie?
To 18-year-old Elsie, I would say don't shrink yourself in order to make others comfortable.
All right, of all the places you have now traveled, what are 3 of your favorite destinations you would most recommend other people should definitely check out?
These will not surprise you. Mexico, Vietnam, and Thailand. I love Thailand. Keep going back.
What are your favorite places in Thailand?
Bangkok. Bangkok is special and chaotic and wonderful. And Chiang Mai, and I also love Phuket. People love hating on Phuket, but Phi Phi Islands is absolutely stunning. Another thing, you're not taking the right tours.
I keep going back to Thailand as well. As you know, I was just in Bangkok for a month in November, and it is always an absolutely magical place to be in. Some of the best food on the planet of Earth. Oh my gosh. All right. Last question, Elsie. What are your top 3 bucket list destinations? These are places you have not yet been, highest on your list you'd most love to see.
Japan, Jordan, Kenya.
I love that list. I have been to all 3 of those.
Lucky.
So when you are ready to plan those trips, hit me up.
I will.
I got you, and I want to see your culinary content from those 3 cities because it's going to be amazing.
Yes.
All right, Elsie, at this point, I want you to let people know how they can find you, how they can follow you on social media. How do you want people to come into your world?
Yes. If any ideas were sparked from this conversation, please slide into my DMs. I'd love to continue the conversation, but you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Runway Rizos.
And please come hang out in person with me and Elsie at the Latino Travel Fest. You can get a 15% discount. Just go to themaverickshow.com/Latino and then use the code Maverick15 and you can get 15% off your ticket. And there's going to be a bunch of other Maverick Show guests there as well. It's going to be an amazing crowd. So come hang out with us. Chicago, June 20th to the 22nd. Go to themaverickshow.com/Latino and use the code Maverick15 to get your ticket. And then when you do DM me on Instagram, let me know that you're coming at Maverick Show Pod, and we will make plans to hang out in person. It's going to be an amazing time. I am so excited to see you again in Chicago.
Me too.
And hang out. That will be amazing. And thank you so much, Elsie, for coming on the show. This was awesome.
This was great. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.